to talk about the theme of this week. I feel like the theme of this week is very much felt and appropriate, like, you know, within what we're basically living. And the theme, I would say, is trust. And I want to talk about that.
In the parasha for the week.
I want to talk about trust. I want to talk about bitachon. And
but this is the parasha for the week.
I'm gonna explain. I won't leave you hanging.
The end of Leviticus.
So
yeah?
the end of Leviticus, exactly. So we're starting off. Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
So we start off actually it's a double parsha. It's Bahar and Bechukotai. That's the official two names of the parsha. It's a double header, right? 2-for-1 deal. And we start off with Parshat Behar. So it talks about Behar. Behar said on the mountain of Sinai, we were taught the laws of Shmitta, right? So go for it.
Okay.
Absolutely. So the laws of Shmitta, I'm going to get to that in a second, what the laws of Shmitta is, etc. We'll go into some of the details of that. But I just want to orient you of what's going on. So it says, when you shall come into the land of Israel, right? When you shall come into the land, then it will be a sabbatical year, right, for God, right? So for 6 years you should not plant, you should not reap, you should not do any work on the land. 6 years you should. On the 7th year, I'm starting with the end in mind, with what the Torah says. Okay. You should come into the land. It should be a sabbatical year. And it says over there, sabbatical year. You shouldn't do any of that work. But then it says 6 years after that, you shall plant, you should reap, you should, all those things, etc. Right? And then that's the cycle. So a couple of questions are asked on this, basically. So question number one is, you're starting off with talking about the sabbatical year, the Shmitta year. You're talking about Shmitta, and you're saying what the technicalities of Shmitta is. So why are you starting with the 7th year, and then you go into saying like, oh, it works like this. The first year is this, second year is this. You should do all those things. In other words, you should talk about the 6 years and then go into the 7th year, which is what leads you to the, enjoying the fruits, so to speak, of your labor. You've worked so hard for 6 years. 7th year comes, you relax. It's a sabbatical for Hashem, for God, right? So why do we start with a Sabbath, a sabbatical? That's what the Torah says. You should come into the land. It should be a sabbatical year, and then you should work. Right? It's really the opposite, right? So I wanna just bridge a couple of the gaps, perhaps, of knowledge that we have with what the sabbatical year is all about. The sabbatical year is, so, we've heard of the sabbatical, somebody that works for a certain amount of time, they have a sabbatical year that they take off, etc. Good life, okay. So sabbatical comes from the Torah. Torah tells us that there's a cycle, and it basically equates the cycle of years and the cycle of the land to the cycle of the week. Just like during the week we have a cycle of time, so too the land has a cycle of time. So we live in a cycle. We live within time. Without time, we are unable to really exist. We're finite, right? We're infinite, really, in our potential, but we're able to bring out that infinity within the constraints of time. So we have time within the week, right? The month, the year. Actually, the first mitzvah which was given to the Jewish people, first mitzvah which Moses teaches, is the mitzvah of the new moon, right? That's the first mitzvah, because we know that we go by the time, right? The 30-day cycle is governed, right, by the cycle of the moon. So that's the first mitzvah. The first mitzvah is our ability to be creative, to be proactive within time. So we have that cycle within time, and we also have that cycle within the land, within the earth. So within the earth, we have this cycle which basically takes us to 6 years of being proactively involved. And we don't have to go into the details of that, but just basically it's divided into a cycle, the way the Chazal put it, the way the rabbis learned it, that a farmer knows the first 2 years they're obligated in a certain type of tithing, maser, so they have to give a second tithing. You always have to give truma to the Kohen. You always have to give maser, a tithing to the Levite, right? But then there's a second maser that on the first and second, fourth and fifth year that we have, it's called maser sheni, that any farmer that lived on the land, everything that they made, they worked towards, they made, they produced all these fruits, etc. They have to take a tenth of those fruits and eat it in Jerusalem. That's called maser sheni. Now, there's all types of laws within it. If a person has too much fruit, thank God, God blessed them. The Torah said, if God blessed you so much, you have so much fruit, you can't even take 10%. You're going to have to take like 4 wagons to Jerusalem. So, you know what you should do? Take, you take it and put it on the money. In other words, it's like the coins now have a holy value to them, and then you're supposed to spend it in Jerusalem and eat it in Jerusalem. So basically, the focus of that is it's supposed to take the person, the farmer, and to let him know where everything comes from. Everything comes from Jerusalem. Everything comes from the gift that God has blessed you with. So don't think that you're, I made the money, etc. That's also the idea of the bikurim. The bikurim is actually every single year. First fruits of the year, you take your first fruits and you take them to Jerusalem. So you take of the 7 species, right? There's a lot of laws involved in all this. So you take your pomegranate, your grapes, your dates, your etc. figs, and you take those and you put them in what is called a tena. You put them in a basket and you take it to Jerusalem, right? And you give it to the Kohen, so you give it to the priest, and you lift it up to God, show that everything that I have is really a gift from Hashem.
When is that? Which year?
That's around this time, the time of Shavuot, exactly. Around this time, exactly. Yeah, the time of Shavuot.
It's Maser every year.
Maser is Maser Rishon. The first tithing goes to the Levite, to the Levi. Teruma goes to the Kohen. Maser Sheni, second tithing, which is what I'm speaking about, is on the first, second, right, fourth, and fifth year. It's a whole cycle going on.
In Israel, do they give maser every year?
Yes, but it's rabbinical. I mean, there's a lot of it's right. Now on the third and sixth year, and seventh year is sabbatical. We'll get to that. Third and sixth year is maser ani. You're supposed to give a tithing, 10% what you have to the poor, which nowadays we have what we call maser. Our laws of giving a tithing or 10% really stems from that concept of giving the 10% of the total earnings that one made, but that actually happened to the poor people on the third and sixth year, right? Only. So from that it's implied, in Shulchan Aruch that a person should give 10% of all their earnings, right? And it's a great recipe for success, for blessing, etc., etc. That's what was done in times of the temple, giving maser, aser, the same letters of Esther, giving 10%, and the same letters of riches is the same root of 10%, and riches is the same root. So anyways, so that's the process of the 6 years. Everybody's involved working, and out of those like that working man, process, the farmer has to go to bring in the second tithing and has to bring in the poor man tithing, right? So far we have 6 years. Yes.
What are the 2 words for the tithing and riches?
Maaser or eser
So it's
me maaser. Yeah. So you're giving 10%. So the Talmud says somebody that gives 10% of their earnings, total earnings, not like after taxes and everything like that. So that's a recipe for tit asher, for having riches, for having, right, an abundance, right? Because you realize where everything comes from, right? You may say, oh, I want to keep that all to myself. I earned it, et cetera, et cetera. But when you transform, then you it's given outwards. So then that's also an opening of the, so to speak, of the vessel of the person to be able to withhold God's infinite blessing, which is much more than what we could ever fathom that we could have, right? So that's the idea of the Maaseh. So we've got 6 years of intense work that the guy is doing, right? Or the girl, or whatever, both of them together. Mr. Farmer and Mrs. Farmer are in the field. Now comes the 7th year. What happens the 7th year? 7th year is the hardest thing to do for somebody that's a worker, somebody that loves their field. Like I know the guy that makes that's the wine maker Winter. He knows every single branch of the vine. Like he knows where to cut it. It's like his baby. So not to say, hands off. Let's not do anything. Is very, very hard. And actually, the Midrash says that who are the people that are giborei koach, that are strong people, osed va'od, doing the will of God. So it's referring to the angels. But the Midrash says it refers to also to those who keep the sabbatical year, the Shmitta year. The sabbatical year is the strong people that do His will, that they do God's will, right? So letting their letting go. That's what actually Shmitta year means. Shmitta means lishmot, means to let go. It's very hard to let go of control because we want to be in control of everything in our life. We want to be in control of our future, of our present, of our past, of everything in control. But guess what? We're not in control. we're just not. And Shmitta is the lesson. It's like supposed to inculcate, put into our consciousness the lesson that we are not in control of life, of anything really, right? What the only thing that we could be in control of is our thoughts, right? Of what we choose to think and what we choose to.
Our reactions.
Yes, our reactions, exactly. Our reactions. We could be given lemons. You could eat it and it's sour, ew, or you could be making lemon juice, right? And put in the sugar and it's delicious, selling it, right? Making money on it, or spitting and complaining and cursing the whole world out, right? Yeah.
This originally referred to agriculture only, or it also refers like let's say someone has a business, a service-oriented business. Are the 7th year they're also supposed to take a sabbatical from their business? So
no. So it's technically the land. Okay. It's associated with the land specifically, right?
What does he do in that year?
So what does he do during the year? What he does during the year is that he basically studies Torah, right? Makes time for the real things of life, which he may not have had a chance to do that much because he was so busy, etc. So now he has time to what? I'm off for the year. Let me go and learn how to learn Gemara better. Let me learn how to learn Talmud better. Let me make a chavruta with this person. Let me learn this. Let me learn that. So now he's becoming a spiritual, godly individual, right? Supposed to be. Yeah.
So contextually, it seemed like at this period of time, most people had farms too, right? Farmers.
Yeah.
So what about today, right? Only the farmers have a year to learn, and everybody else has to keep working. How would we apply that concept and the spirit of that law today?
Yeah. Great. Exactly. Good. So that's that. So the idea is that the Torah is talking about the land, right? And it's talking about the land does not just mean the physical land, but it means the concrete material world that we live in. It refers to the physical land because, again, the majority of people were involved in the land and the working the land, but it applies, the spiritual implication is the material world and the world that we're living in. All right, the sabbatical year. So now let's speak about the sabbatical year and like go a little bit more into it. So now there's a very interesting, so we didn't answer the question yet, why we start off, the Torah starts off talking about jump into the land, sabbatical, 6 years work. Why don't we say 6 years and then sabbatical, right? We didn't answer that yet. So just hold tight, we'll get to that. I just want to ask another question, or I'm not asking a question. I just want to bring out a question that the Torah asks. It's actually one of the only places that the Torah ever asks a question or thinks that we're going to ask a question, right? And it says like this. It says, what if you shall say, what will you eat on the 7th year, right? And on the year after, because you're not doing any work on it, means that if you're not doing work, hello, what's going to happen, right? If you shall ask that question, Torah says, meaning it's foreseeing that human nature is to ask that question, to basically say, I'm not doing anything right now. What's going to happen? So if you shall ask that question, so v'tziviti et birchati, I will command my blessing to you for the 6th, 7th, and 8th year, that it will make enough. You will have plenty for 3 years. It's a direct blessing from the Torah that you will have everything that you need to have on the 6th, 7th, and 8th year. Yes. Yes, from the 6th year is going to yield so much. And again, also the 8th year is going to have such intense blessings to it from the land laying fallow that you're going to just be completely satiated and even more. And by the way, it's like agriculturally, it's known that lands that do this yield better crops.
Well, it's so amazing.
Even outside of Israel.
Yeah.
What's so amazing about that too is that we also know that typically the last year before you do it is going to have the worst yield. So see how big of a blessing that is. That what should be the worst yield actually gives 3 times the amount.
Very good, exactly, because it's already been worked out so much. But it says no, that exact thing is gonna yield so much. So what it's basically telling us that you're working with a super power you're working with something above nature. It may look like it's nature. It may appear to you that you are the farmer. You're doing all this work. You're doing all this, this tilling and pruning and all that stuff. It's me. But when you realize that when you're within the process and you realize that the whole process is really a supernatural process, then the whole approach to it, the whole approach shifts. So the Talmud says that what is emunah, what is seder emunah, that the seder of emunah is zra'im. We have six sections of the Mishnah. We have zra'im, and we have moed, we have nashim, we have nezikim, kodshim, and tahara. So those are our 6 sections of the Mishnah, Shisha Sidei Mishnah, right? So it goes through the Talmud goes through the meaning of the 6 sections, and it says that emunat itecha, it goes through like a verse, emunat itecha, chosen yeshuot, right? Each one of them refers to one of the 6 sections. So the one that has to do with emunah has to do with zra'im, with seeds, which is the whole section of the Mishnah which talks about the planting and the farming life. It has to do with emunah. So the Talmud says that who is somebody that has emunah? Ma'amin b'chai olamim v'zoreah. That meaning, who is somebody that has emunah, true emunah, is that he has belief in the source of life, and then he plans. Right? That's what the Talmud says. Emunah. So that's why Zra'im is connected to emunah, right? Ma'amin b'chai olamim v'zoreah. So question is, it should be really the opposite. It should be zoreah, you planned, and then ma'amin, and then you believe, and that God's going to give me rain, right? I'm going to have the strength to be able to, physical vitality to be able to go out, and do all the work that it takes. So I have emunah after I do the actual work. The Talmud says, no, it's the opposite. You start off, even before you do the planting, you are already starting off with emunah. In other words, the precondition, the start off to everything is the ABC, so to speak, is the emunah. Before you even go planting, before you even do anything, you believe in the Creator and not your strength and kochi ve'otzem yadi, my power and my own strength that allowed me to do all these things, right? So the precondition to even starting everything off is this sense of emunah, of belief, of trust in the Creator and something above me. So therefore, basically, sort of answers our question before that we said that the Torah says we'll come into the land and it will be a sabbatical for God, and then it goes into the process of the 6 days, right? Why does it go in that process? Why does it start in that way? Because the Torah essentially wants to teach us that when we go into the land, the precondition to going into the land, and the land of Israel is not like any other land in the world, right? And recognize that you're not the man that's going to be, doing all these things. It's the blessing of God that's allowing you to do everything that you'll be doing, right? And it's interesting because in the other parsha, the Chukota, it talks about how the land was desolate for so many years. It says that there's 70 years that the land was desolate, right? For the 70 sabbatical years that the Jewish people didn't keep, right? There were 70 and 70, so there were 70 years in between the first exile, right? And they were in Babylon for 70 years, right? Corresponding to the 70 sabbatical years. So it says, very interesting over there, it says that the land was left fallow, was left desolate. Although there were a lot of nationalities, there were a lot of nations that were there, that came into the land. They're like, yeah, Israel, we want to be there. We heard what was going on there. They came into the land. They tried to plant. They tried to do it. Nothing happened. Gurnished. It just didn't go.
Wow. Can I ask you?
Sure.
Why do you say the land in Israel is different from any other place on earth? Can you explain?
Yeah, I will. So now, it also, the Ramban, who lived in Barcelona, I don't know if you're aware of that. The Ramban came from Barcelona, Spain.
I know that.
Yeah, she's from Barcelona. She lives
a lot
there.
of famous Kabbalists.
Yeah.
Toledo,
Huge.
Girona.
Toledo, yeah. Amazing. My family is actually from Barcelona.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were there for many years, hundreds of, yeah. And then Morocco, like we said.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barcelona. So the Ramban actually says it, his commentary on the Torah says that that part of the amazing blessing, so to speak, of the land of Israel is the fact that all conquerors that came to the land could not do anything with the land.
Sure.
He came to the land, the Romans weren't down, the Greeks, the Syrians, blah, 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 all these people, they were like, yeah, we're in control. The Turks, the Ottoman Empire were here for hundreds of years. They're like, no, whatever, we'll go to, make more money in this land, we'll do this. They liked it. There was a lot of land here. But all of a sudden, in at the end of the 1800s, all of a sudden, we had this sort of like aliyah, movement that came to Israel, spearheaded from the Chovevei Tzion movement, right? Not to go into too much, right? Historical background of that. The Rothschild, moved it ahead, with what? With planting the land. Like he wanted to create farmers on the land, right? And vineyards, and he actually owned, just historical tidbit, he owned Lafite Winery, which is one of the most famous wineries, still is in France, fanciest wineries in France. He owned it, part owner, and he said, Israel, great culture for wine, right? And he gave vines to the to people to plant in the land of Israel, and all of a sudden, Israel was just orchards and vineyards and this and that. All of a sudden, it was blooming, exactly, right? And it's amazing. Much more and more and more, you hear about like the land of Israel being one of the strongest like economies right now in the for sure the strongest in the Middle East, but like in the world, it's a God's blessing. I mean, there's no other explanation. Even our worst enemies will admit that. They'll say like, we hate what's going on, but you can't deny. You cannot deny. Less than 70 years. Exactly.
It's in spite of a lot of economic policies still in Israel too. Import tariffs. No Western country sells import tariffs,
What is it?
Import tariffs. It's like a huge tax on anything that we import into the country. The automobiles are at least twice as expensive.
Yeah.
Cheese is 3 times as expensive.
Yeah, but exports are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
They have like, it's a something which is above nature, right? And despite wars, extinction, like, so again, like, you don't need to be too much of an intellectual to realize something supernatural is going on in this land, all right? The land of Israel, right? The idea of the physical land of Israel, and we'll get to the rest of the world in a second. But the idea is that when you come to the land, right, that's what the Torah tells us, you should realize it's a sabbatical for God. In other words, let go of your previous preconditions and the ways that you think that you should, do things, and first and foremost, inculcate within yourself, right? Breed within yourself this emunah. Because to live in the land of Israel, you need to have emunah. You need to have a very strong emunah.
What's really interesting about that too is before
precondition.
Were expelled from all these Arab countries. Beirut was like the Paris of the Middle East, and Beirut is part of the Eretz Israel. Or like Saudi Arabia, half of Saudi Arabia is part of the Eretz Israel too.
Well, technically when Mashiach comes, not yet, not yet.
It's not considered part of the Eretz Israel?
No.
Only the state of Israel's Eretz Israel?
Well, the deal is like right now we have the section of Israel that was conquered that when we came back in the second time, in Ezra and Nehemiah, it's considered Ezra and Nehemiah is the second coming that they came back to the land. So we have that section of Israel right now. And that's the section which is considered Israel. It's pretty much exact. Yeah. Akko, for example, is a question if it's in Israel. Akko is outside. Eilat is for sure not Israel. Just by the way, they keep 2 days in Eilat, 2 days of Yom Tov.
But there's some maps that have it inside, but that's for the third coming. You're saying the greater Israel.
Exactly. So the idea of when Mashiach. So there's there's also the time of King David's conquest. King David had a huge conquest because he conquered Syria. He had the entire Syria pretty much,
right.
And he had like Lebanon, and he went down to Jordan. He had like a huge area over there. That's King David, and then the idea when the third temple will be built, and the idea of Mashiach. So then it says that the section of Israel is going to be right. V'natati gvulchem, right? Nahar Prat. It will be until the Euphrates River, which is basically Iraq. So it's going to be a very, very large piece, including for sure, but it's going to be very large area of land that
what you're talking about now, the land of Eretz Israel at this moment.
Yeah.
I was looking at a map just recently before I came, and it was identifying the old borders of Judea.
Mm-hmm.
So is this more or less?
No, so the deal with Judea and the other
Territory.
That Judea and the tribe of Binyamin, right, and part of Levi had like Judea and Samaria. That was the kingdom.
Okay.
And then there was the Assyria. Then there was the 10 tribes that had their kingdoms.
Okay.
Well, actually, they were more in Samaria area, but we could say like Judea. It's like we call it now Judea and Samaria, but it was more like Judea, and it was more, whatever, more going to the west, etc. So anyway, so the idea is that the Torah is basically imbuing us with and setting us up for going into the land. And it's a very important like wreath, like when you go to Hawaii, they put those things on you, welcome to Hawaii, aloha, whatever it is. So God is like, when you come to the land, aloha, just let go of all your sophistication, of all your Western mentalities and this and this and that, and don't lose it. You're going to use it. It's a very good thing. Tool you're bringing in. Everybody that came to Israel came with their knowledge, came with their experience. Very, very important. But the starting point is you've got to like let go. Shmitta. You've got to. That's what. So we're starting off the Shmitta idea, the Shmitta cycle, as we're getting into the land. That's just a prerequisite of coming to the land. And just fact. Anybody that's tried to live here, especially if they came from abroad, it's not so simple, especially if you're holding on to your preconditions of what it should be looking like and what it should be based on where I'm coming from, because it doesn't work that way. And it doesn't mean that it can't get better. It definitely could get better. Customer service could definitely always get better. Certain things could definitely get better with a lot of work to them, but at the same time, you can't fault the environment, so to speak, of what's going on. And you sort of have to like let go, and that is the prerequisite for living in the land of Israel. So now, living in the land of Israel, and we still didn't answer the question that the Torah asked, that question that we're going to all ask. What are you going to do on the 6th, 7th, 8th, which is a very, very valid question. We'll get to that in a second. But what you were saying, so you're telling me that the Torah is just speaking about the land of Israel, and I thought that the Torah means lesson and it's supposed to teach us lessons, not just for those who may live in the land of Israel. What about those that don't? Right. So now the Tzemach Tzedek, who was the third Rebbe, the grandson of the Alter Rebbe, has a whole like discourse explaining what the Shmitta, the sabbatical year, is. It's a very fascinating piece that he speaks about. But he basically says that the sabbatical, the 7th year, is the concept of the Malchut. Malchut is the kingship, the level of kingship, right? You've got 7 sefirot, and the 7th sefira is the sefira of kingship, and that's the 7th year. And he says that the 7th that sefira is associated with the creation, associated with the material world. That's what Malchut is, right? So on that level of Malchut, there's going to be now, the way he refers to it is an elevation. That Malchut now becomes elevated back to its source, which is basically Chokhmah, which is wisdom. or I like to call it intelligence. It goes back to its source, and now it's able to kind of like go back to that cycle again, start the cycle over. And the way he puts it is as follows, like when we take a break from something, when we work and then we take a break. So what happens? What happens is that the person goes back to their self. Like, when you like working really hard, you sit back for a second. What happens when you like breathe in? You're like, what happens? You're bringing in all of your dispersed energy, so to speak, that you invested in everything that you were trying to do. And now you're like, you were involved in all those things, but now you're coming back to the source of your vitality, right? When you're able to rest. That's what resting does. And without rest, then you cannot go on, right? You can't. It won't happen, right? And that's why it's such an unbelievable thing. Like the idea of the Sabbath, right? The idea of the Shabbat in time and Shabbat in place. But the Shabbat like gives us like such an unbelievable like time to like regroup and to recharge, to reorient, to look at the real things that are important to us in our lives. Connect with family, connect with friends, connect with ourselves, right? Connect with God that's within ourselves, with true spirituality. So then we're able to take that and go back into the week again. We're able to go back into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever, because we didn't just have a day it's not a vacation. It's not just a day to chill out, that, you go to the beach, that's nice. It's not just a day that you're going fishing. That's also nice. But it's a time that you are regrouping. And the word for that is vayinafash. Shabbat, vayinafash. And what's vayinafash? The Talmud says vaynefesh. That the nefesh like comes back to the nefesh is
soul.
The soul comes back into the individual. And after the Sabbath, after Shabbat, so then actually it says that the soul leaves, that extra soul kind of like leaves. So the Tzemach Tzedek explains that the sabbatical year of the land is that the land now elevates back to its source, and now it's able to like harness its minerals, its potential, its godly on a physical level, right? But on a spiritual level, he says that the sphera of Malchut now elevates up to the level of Chachma. And during that year, you're not supposed to touch the land, because now the land has been elevated. It's like you can't touch it, just like on Shabbat. You're not supposed to do proactive things. You're not supposed to, do work on Shabbat. You're not supposed to cut things. You're not supposed to, create fire. You're not to be proactive. Why? Because you can't utilize being proactive on Shabbat. Because the day, the energy of the day has been regrouped in its source. So if you want that day, you've got to go back to that source, and that source is this level of Chokhmah, right? And that's basically the whole Sabbath, the whole Lechadodi is all about that. Lechadodi likakala, right? The whole idea is the bride is going towards the groom, and the groom is going towards the bride. That whole idea of the groom and bride is the idea of that Malchut goes towards the sphere of Chachma, right? And they unite, right? The highest most level unites with the lowest most level. And on Friday night, there's the elevation of Malchut that goes up. And on the Sabbath day, the Chachma basically is channeled downwards. And on this third meal, there's a connection between the two of them come together. There's a level of harmony, right? So also on the land itself also elevates and is now able to regroup itself, right? From that perspective, from that point of Chokhmah. So now there are 7 cycles of Shmitta. right? We go through 7 cycles.
Sorry, to the land also has Sphira. So the land also has
Exactly. So the first year, which we're by the way on the second one, corresponds to Gvura, right? Corresponds to like each one of those years corresponds to. So you're living within the land, within the cycle of the ultimate spiritual proactiveness, right? And then the 7th year, so the whole land is a spiritual land, right? It's just the land of Malchut, exactly. Eretz is the land of Malchut.
So when we came first to the country, we came from to Malchut.
Yes.
That's why we didn't do it.
Yeah. And we came with the point in mind, with the end in mind. In other words, with a goal in mind. The goal in mind is you got to realize that everything really is really God. It's really all spirituality. It's all Hashem, right? So we're starting with the end in mind. By the way, there's so many lessons that we could take from there. First of all, lesson is that when we, let's say in a business or anything that we're doing, if you start with the end in mind, you start with, okay, there's the end in mind that you are trying to reach. So then that's a very important tool when you want to plan, you want to chart something. So God, so to speak, like charts, says you're going to come into the land. This is the end in mind. And this is also the beginning. You know, like the end is also the beginning. So if you want to like really do anything, you want to start anything, you have to go with the end in mind. That's how God created the world. Sof Maseh, b'machshava tchila. The whole intention was really with the end in mind. So if you want to create something, you want to do something, you have to start it with exactly. The vision is already, what is it going to look like? You know, that has to be clear to you before you even go into that first proactive step, as opposed to like, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. Well, then it won't work. So, you know, so there's a lot of very, very practical lessons that come from there. So there's 7 cycles. So the 7 cycles correspond to 7 times 7, obviously. And we get to the fulfillment, almost like to the ultimate level of 7s, where now on the 49th year, we've got the ultimate level of Shmitta. That 7th Shmitta is a huge Shmitta. Because to be on that level of letting go for all those cycles, that means that you've already been conditioned to be on that level of real immense spirituality, right? When that is kept, right? So then after that, that means that now you've reached a new plateau, and that plateau is really the 50th gate, because we've got now the gate of what is called the Yovel, the Jubilee year. The Jubilee is the 50th gate. And now we've got the 49th year, but also the 50th year, which would be the 8th year of the normal cycle, or the first of the other cycle, is now a no-go also, right? So now we've got 6, 7, 8, and 9. So basically we got like 4 years of like immense emunah and bitachon, which is required of the person, or the person already reached that through that cycle. But very practically speaking, for 4 years, the person is pretty much in a state of complete reliance on the cycle of spirituality, of the godly cycle.
Why 4 again?
Well, it's because it would be the 6th year, the 7th year.
6th year you are working.
What?
Why the 6th year?
Well, no, you're relying, so to speak, on this from the 6th year to give it to you. Okay. Yeah, it's a reliance. I mean, reliance on God, but reliance that you're saying that the 6th year is going to give it to me. So then 7th, and then 8th year, you're basically not doing anything, and then the 9th year, like regrouping it. I mean, so you could technically say 3 years, but it's really the 6th year is the one that's, you know, repelling you towards all that cycle.
The 6th would be like the 48th year.
Yeah.
Because it's only in the first year of the 8th cycle, after the 7 cycles and 7 years, then you also don't work.
Yes.
The land.
Yes.
Malkut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with 50 days of the counting of the Omer.
A lot to do. A tremendous amount to do, because the whole idea of the 50 is the above nature realm. We've got, which is very similar to number 8.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the number 8 realm, which is the infinity. We've got the number 8, that goes on and on and on. So the number 8, or the macro number 8, would be the number 50.
Wow, that is interesting.
And it's the 50th gate, the 50th gates of Bina. So that's actually what we do during the cycle of the Omer. We count for 49 days, but it says actually you shall count 50 days. So it's a contradiction. You should count 49, or is it 50? So the answer is that by your counting of the 49 levels, you've now also reached the 50th gate. That's one answer. Another answer is that through your counting of 49, you've now opened up the 50th gate, and now that's allowing you to go to the next cycle of your pursuit of understanding, because now you've opened up the 50th gate. Now you're able to start over again, so to speak. So the Zohar calls the Jubilee year, the Yovel year, the level of Bina. Bina Ila'ah, like the supernal Bina. Whereas Shmitta is Malchut. So basically those two levels of Bina and Malchut are the two feminine of the Sphira. We've got the lower level of the feminine, which is Malchut, and then we've got the higher level of the feminine, which is Bina, which is really the concept of intuition, of understanding, right, of implication. And Bina has within it, when somebody understands something which is not just spoken to them, not just said or read, but they imply something, that means that it actually stems from a higher place. Like your ability to, what I could be saying right now, if I was saying this to somebody that would have no interest or doesn't have the intellectual ability to really understand what I'm saying, it may be respectful and sit here or whatever, and or maybe not. And that's it. But somebody that has an understanding, somebody that could take away an idea. So it has more to do with the person who's understanding than the person who's even saying, because the understanding is the ability to now take it to the next level for the person who is understanding. That means that the level of Bina actually is much more than just hearing something or understanding something. It's rooted in a higher source, right? So that level of Bina is called the level of freedom. It's called, in the Jubilee year, all slaves go out free. All lands go back to the original master. Everything goes back to its source. It's like the reset button. And that means on the Sphira level, that the level of Bina is the level of internal freedom, of reaching a status, a level of not being worried by what the Shmitta cycle is constantly saying. Because although the person is going for it, they're working and then they're letting go, but they're still feeling, hey, what if I did work? What if I did make that money? Then what? You always have that thought, right? But the level of Yovel is, I'm letting go completely. I have the complete trust in the source, in the master, and sort of like when we say goes free, we go free. Whoever is in that cycle is on the level of the ultimate, level of acceptance, exactly, of true we should say,
faith and abundance.
Yeah, and I would say even more than that, of true spirituality and true emunah in God, because it's not something which is now they have to do. Now they feel like they are inevitably just doing it, exactly, and that's the level of the Yovel year, the Jubilee year. Zohar says that's the level of Bina. It's connected to Leah, right? The Malchut is connected, the Shmitta is connected to Rachel, right? We have the two mothers and wives of Jacob really represent the spiritual dimensions of Bina and Malchut. So anyways, the idea of the simple person who's going through this process. So that's the level of the Jubilee year. You have to be like living life in its fullest to even reach the Jubilee year. If you fully do the Jubilee year cycle, you have to start young and you're going through it. Unless you're like born in the middle of it, then it's not like fully Jubilee. But if you're able to do that, then that is a state of mind of like, really awakened, state of mind, I don't know what they would call it in other religions, nirvana, enlightenment of true highest level of enlightenment.
Assuming your work life
yoga
began at 16, right. 24,
exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly.
So you're going to be at least 70.
Yeah.
More, or 40, 60. Well, it's kind of like the retirement age. If you started at 16,
yeah,
you would be in your 49th year at the age of 65.
Yeah. I mean, it's a level of retirement. On that level, you're able to like go back to your original original state of mind. You go out free. You're on the level of like basically spiritual. And you could imagine that by that time, hopefully the person put aside, the amount that they need to put aside, or they bought the things they need to do, based on God's blessing to them as a result of, that cycle of letting go and of belief, etc. So I just want to just talk about this question that the Torah entertains. What will we eat on the, what will we eat basically on the, during the Shmitta year, etc. So this idea is actually spoken about by Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhensk, who was one of the great Hasidic masters, and he writes over there in his book. He explains this concept as follows. He says that God naturally gives, and God naturally has a flow of bestowal, of giving that he gives to each and every person in the world, and each and every creature in the world has its like mailbox, has everything that they, given, everything is given to the person, and they, in reality, what's the thing that could hold the person back? It's their lack of faith in that channel, right, of goodness, which is being given to them, which is being like channeled to them. That's the only thing that could hold them back. So really, Melech of Lezhensk explains that if a person will ask, what will we eat during the 6th year, 7th year, or whatever, what will we eat? So he says that over there, that question is the problem, because that question already broke that natural cycle of benevolence. God, says, I put you in this world, you're a part of my creation. I'm responsible to take care of you, right? You have to start off with knowing that I'm the source, right? When you come into the land, Shmitta. When you come to the land, it's me. Put your faith in me. Start off with me, then go planting, right? Don't plant and then say, oh, I didn't make money, then what, and then complain. Don't do that. If you're starting with with the end in mind, then you're starting off with the right perspective. But what if you start with the wrong perspective? And that's the question over here that we have. We have the wrong perspective type of individual. And so now Rabbi Elimelech of Lijan says, "V'tziviti et birchati." The Torah says that I now have to like reconnect these lines, these pipes of bestowal. It's like I have to do some piping work. I have to send the plumber in, spiritual plumber, and I'll put this together. Oh, you broke it over here. Water's gushing out of there. We got to send somebody in to fix that. Put glue on that and align all that. Because why? Because it was the person that bashed the natural flow of really what is meant to happen, what is meant to be.
Is that tikkun olam in that respect?
Well, God has to do that, but it's a lack of our tikkun, because our true tikkun is really our ability to let go, right? Which is, again, that's the theme. The theme of it all is really the ability to let go, which is very, very difficult, because all of us, everybody, likes to be in control of something, right? And when you want to, let's say, educate a child, you want to feel, I'm giving you control. Yeah, you have a choice of what you want to choose. Great. You chose that. You're in control of your destination. So control is something that we really thrive upon. But unhealthy, just 1 second, unhealthy control is the problem. Unhealthy control is where we just get into thinking, oh, I need to go to this college, I need to get this job and marry this person at this age, and that needs to happen, and that this many kids, and then that should happen, and this much money, and that should. Okay, you're basically putting the demands on the big boss up there. You're telling everything, all the to-do list, the request is thrown up there. But like Alter Rebbe once said, like somebody that complained a lot and thought that he was in control of everything. He said to him, you're complaining about what you don't have and what you're supposed to have. What about what you're supposed to be doing? Did you think about that? And that's, unfortunately, like many people don't consider that. They just see what the cup is half empty, as opposed to, well, I need to be more connected to God's perspective, which is the Shmitta idea, the emunah, right? Which is really that source of like flowing blessing come from. That's the source of flowing blessing. That's that source. But the minute, you put a dent into that and you start being so smart and sophisticated and so,
or afraid,
it really comes from fear.
Yeah.
Because a person will not have food, and that's, nobody wants to be in that situation for sure. But that's where like that strength comes in, because it says those that do the Shmitta thing are called strong people, and having true emunah is really takes a lot of gvura, takes a lot to be like a gibor, to be like very, very strong to really do that. So to really have emunah, it really takes a lot of harnessing, a lot of strength, and not to basically freak out, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, that in the beginning we were, I'm still a little bit confused, because it was agricultural based, so it's not applying to people who have a business or whatever, working a service job. But then you said, in reality, the Torah is making an analogy between the agricultural as a representation of Malchut. Mm-hmm. So then, now I'm going back, I just need a clarification. So it does definitely apply to everybody.
Absolutely, for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. So let's take practical examples, how it would apply. So in our jobs and whatever it is, our businesses, the idea is, first of all, to realize that what I'm doing is whatever venture that a person is on, they cannot control the outcomes. Whatever you do, you cannot ever control the outcomes. I mean, you could project, you could this and that, do all those things, fine. that the due diligence and all that is super important. Yes, but to realize that why you're doing it. Whatever I'm doing, whatever profession I'm in, it has to somehow connect back to faith. So if a person is an accountant, I don't know, you want to be an accountant. I'm personally, I would not go that route. But anyway, I just brought that up. I don't know why. Steve, you were an accountant. Yeah. So somebody would choose that. How would that be a spiritual kind of a thing? It's hard to say, Steve. That's probably why you quit. No. Steve is up there. So it's hard to be an accountant. I mean, but however, okay.
But if that's your aptitude, it's not hard.
It's your exactly, and you're doing good things. You're figuring people's numbers for them. You're allowing them to live a legal life, pretty much, and a more, hopefully like organized type of a life, so that there's a great value in it. So like seeing the spiritual value in what it is that whatever it is that a person is doing is the number one thing that they should be like jumping into before, right? And that gives us tremendous amount of strength for the person, because Sunday is going to come around, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're going to be like, oh, why am I dealing with all these numbers? I hate my boss. This person is like a worst customer, is yelling at me on the phone, and what do I need? Person is like a miserable person, doesn't want to come back to work, doesn't want to like, why am I doing this? So you're not going to want to come back to work unless you have your true motivation. Your true motivation has to be a spiritual motivation, has to be a more of a godly motivation, which inspires you to do whatever you're doing. And it goes into whatever business, let's say somebody starts, or a profession, or a doctor, or a lawyer, whatever it is. What's your spiritual reason for doing this? We're not taught this in school. We're not taught this in colleges. Colleges like, go make a lot of money, go do this, go do that. Why have I been making a lot of money? I'm not gonna be happy. Doesn't matter. Just go make a lot of just work. Just work. Put aside a pension. Just go. You'll figure out when you retire. Isn't I mean, I don't want to like, I just like, it's depressing. It really is. And I know many people like that in my family that have lived an unhappy 40 and 50 years of their life to just be able to retire. 6 years, you should work. On the 7th year, you should retire. The Torah tells you, no. Retire, in other words, Shmitta first, and then work. You can't figure out. Exactly. If you can't figure out why you're in the Board of Ed, which is like the Board of Education, and you're going through like, difficult neighborhoods, and you're teaching in this, you're doing that for all these years, why the heck you're there, then, really, why are you doing it? It's a waste of your life. Well, you can't get back your time. Mm-hmm. You can't get back that most precious time of your life. So if you can't find the significance in what you're doing, then it's a very sad reality to live. And that's the practical lesson that we take away from the Shmitta, regardless of the land, whoever lives in the land of physical land of Israel. Whatever your job is, you got to start off with a Shmitta in mind. Let go of saying it's going to be this way, it's going to be that. It's going to be God's way. Connect to the ultimate higher purpose, and then go into whatever your profession is. And then guess what? It's going to be a much happier time, 6 years, right? And after a certain amount of time, you have to like kind of like reassess and make that calculation. Am I on the right path? Maybe I need to be doing this. Maybe I need to like do that, whatever. But there's a time of like reassessing after a certain amount of time, which people call a sabbatical year. They take off and they study, they learn something new, they relax. So all of that is really super important for us to bear in mind, that if we want to if we want to have our 6 years to be productive, we have to start off with a Shmitta first, right? That's the first thing. It's God. It's Hashem. Hashem is starting us. We're starting with Him in mind, and then that allows us to just do whatever it is we need.
Right, that would be great. Like to put
Exactly.
ourselves in that place where we start off saying, I'm willing to trust completely that what's going to happen is going to be more than just awesome, more than I could ever imagine.
Exactly. And there's research on that optimism will have an unbelievable positive effect also on the success of whatever it is that you're doing, as opposed to my parents pushed me into this, or I want to make money, or I want to do this, or okay, that's going to burn out. You're going to run out of fuel very, very soon, as opposed to like you're saying, be positive, be proactive, be happy, etc. So Gloria, you wrote, what advice would you give to a young girl who must choose a career and must cope with what this profession shall give? Job finding is difficult. Yep. I would say that she would need to follow her gift to the world. What is
natural talent?
What's her natural talent? What are you naturally good at? And the things that you're naturally good at, then you're naturally also going to want to, you're going to be
more time
spend your time on it,
and then you become an expert, and experts are always recognized.
Exactly.
And financially rewarded because there are few in their field. Absolutely.
Do the 10,000 hour thing, doing your practice. But again, you're not going to want to do things which you're not good at, which you're not happy doing. And that's why, Steve, you're not an accountant anymore, because you weren't happy doing that.
Are you really talking to the computer?
I'm not talking to the computer. I'm talking to they're in the computer. It's like when television came out, people thought that people were inside the television. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but
hello, anybody in there?
Hello.
Before we finish,
yeah,
you said that you were going to go back to why the land in Israel is unique on earth.
Yeah. So the land of Israel is the epitome of the land of the sphere of Malchut. In other words, it has the ultimate level of blessing of the land. It's called Malchut, basically. And from the land of Israel, it says that all lands are actually blessed. Right? The Talmud says that from the concentration of the land of Israel. So then we take almost like concentrate, you have like apple juice concentrate, and you want to make like a ton of cups, so you take just a little bit. So the land of Israel is so concentrated, and it has this effect for the rest of the world. That's what the Talmud says. Yeah, and it's true.
Well, undoubtedly, what they've done since 1948 is just miraculous.
That's miraculous. It absolutely is. But it's not. The thing is, it's not them. It's God.
Yeah.
It's God that actually said, you're going to come to the land, and I want this to happen. I want orchards. I want fields. I want not just apples. I want also apple.
Apple pears.
Apple telephones,
Apple
and
computers,
and what do you call it? Blackberries. I mean, they don't have blackberries anymore, and that's not from me. That's actually from Canada. But anyways, you get the point.
Interesting, because he said, if you don't keep my command, then and yet Israel is still abandoning it. Israel still. So is it because there are some who are doing it, and that's why there is blessing, but it could be so much more if we were all doing it?
Well, I think we're on the level right now that it's kind of the end stages of it all. We're on the 6th year, 6th millennium, 6,000th. We're it says this actually. One of the commentators lists is we're right before the Shmitta years, the time also Mashiach. You know, it says, by the way, just an idea, God created the world with Mashiach in mind, right? Created the world. Ruach Elokim merchefet al pnei hamayim. Mashiach was in mind, and then he created the world. And so we're going through the 6,000 years, you know, this whole idea of like, of awaiting, like, you know, the idea of the Shmitta. So basically on a global level, we should constantly be living with the concept of Mashiach, constantly living with the concept that, you know, any second, you know, it could happen. We're living towards that reality, you know, and you know, living with Mashiach, you know, like it's not just a concept in the future, but it's a concept which is like really now. So anyway, so that's the idea. A lot of like very, very important practical takeaways from the parsha, from the readings, from you know, and again, just like the practical advice is just to know that we need to start with the end in mind. We need to start off with emunah. We need to like let go. We can't be in control of every detail in our life. We need to just realize that it's like praying first, and then, you know, the results will come as a result of that. And yeah, on a practical level, to just realize that whatever I'm doing, whatever jobs we have, we need to be very like aware that why we're doing them, right? And we're doing them and you know, Gloria, coming back to what you're saying, if we can harness like the higher motive to do what we're doing, then we're going to be able to really do it very, very well. You know, what's the higher motive for it? Is it just to make a lot of money? You know, that's not a great motivator. You know, why you do it? You're bettering the world. You're doing something to better people's lives. What is the motivator for it? So that's the idea, and that's the thought for today. So, anyways, so a lot of blessings, and we should have mamash the blessings of the land, and we should have the blessings of the millennium, blessings of Mashiach, and a lot of success in everything that we do, and have a lot of emunah and bitachon and abundance on all levels, physical, spiritual, and to be able to really to share that abundance, you know, with everybody, with many others. Amen. So many blessings to everybody.
Thank you.